And we're live. Welcome to Virtually Connecting. Today we are at the New Medium Consortium Summer Conference in Rochester, New York. I'm Rebecca Hogue, co-founder of Virtually Connecting, and I'm located in Sunnyvale, California today. I'm going to pass over to the on-site folks for introductions.
Hey, I'm Autumn Keynes. I'm the on-site buddy, and I'm here with a bunch of people who sit on the board and some people who are attending, and yeah, this is just really great. I'm going to let people introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Gardner Campbell. I saw on the board, I don't sit on it. Top that.
I'm Michael Berman, and I am in a musical duo with Gardner.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we'll sing
So
for you later.
if the right cue comes up,
Ah.
if you find the right key, we'll both start singing together, either in unison or harmony, depending on what it calls for.
Can I get a hint of what the
No,
No,
it's like trying to get the
Okay.
scratch and marks, when you say
Right, that's right. Here comes the bird. Good.
Bird drops down.
Yeah, and you win the song.
And I'm Liz Neely, and really happy to be virtually sharing what we're doing around the world.
Hi, I'm Krista Kopp, and I met some of you yesterday, but this is really awesome that we're being able to do this.
Hi, Joe Antonelli, Middlebury College. I'm attendee, and in another life, I'm a vocal percussionist. So, throw down
Do
the
you
beat.
see? Do you see
Vocal
what's
bases.
going to be an interesting
Bass.
evening?
Nice.
We might have our first.
Just start.
Over short with his teeth, yes, and his teeth are pearly white.
Oh, that was bad. So is that a Virtually Connecting first?
I think that's a Virtually Connecting first.
And what's really good, what you didn't know, is this is going to be immortalized on YouTube. So, we could
Now
be,
you tell us.
yeah,
That's awesome.
With Liz and I just giggling.
just lurking.
Well, you gotta have a giggler.
Yeah.
You're
All
supposed to be doing
I was-
backing.
I'm going to pass over to some of the virtual folks and let them introduce themselves real quick. And I'm going to start with Helen, who's
Semi-virtual.
physically virtual, or semi-virtual, I think is what it is.
Semi-virtual.
I'm semi-virtuous. So.
I'm sort of here, but not in the same room. So I'm unvirtually there, and I'm here with.
I'm Barbara Friedman from Cornell University, and I'm virtual Patrice today.
All right, and AK?
Hi, I'm AK. I'm coming to you right now from UMass Boston, and since it's a musically themed virtual connecting session, I guess in the previous life I was a club DJ.
Nice.
Nice.
Oh, very nice.
Remix
Wow.
everything.
Scratch my vinyl.
I sing in the shower. Does that count?
Take your laptop in the shower. Let's get it.
Picture it didn't happen.
Sue?
Sorry, I didn't hear you there. I'm Sue Beckingham from England, Sheffield in England, the north of England, so virtually, and also right across the pond. Absolutely torrential rain that we've got here, so it might look a little bit dark in the background. I work at Sheffield Hallam University, so I work in the departments of computing, and my research interest is social media. So I teach digital marketing and professionalism and communication rather than sort of the really techie stuff. So yeah, that's me.
Very cool.
Great.
Thanks for joining us, Sue.
Awesome. I'm gonna, throw something out there to start the conversation, and that is sort of, we've heard in a lot of the different sessions about the town hall being transformative, or the town hall being particularly interesting, and I'm wondering if you guys want to share sort of what your takeaways were from that, because we didn't, we're virtual, so we weren't there.
You planned it, so
Sure.
Krista was the
So,
planner of the town hall session.
Yeah, so I'm the vice chair for the NMC board, and as you know, we've had some leadership changes in the NMC, and one of the things that's really important to the board is making sure that we have the voice of the members and our community to go forward, and we really want to make sure that we are listening to what people need as we're making choices and as we're hiring a new executive director. And so a couple weeks ago, we were
we were working on some of the planning for the conference, and it came to mind that we really needed to have a town hall. And so we started by just coming up with some questions to really start the conversation off, but it was really important for all of us to at least start opening that dialogue. And really the town hall is truly the beginning and not the end of the conversation, because we have a website that I hope all of you participate in. It's nmc.org/nmcnext, and that you can put your responses to those questions or any other thing that you want as well. And that's also where we'll be communicating with the community about what's coming up next. So as we get the executive job description out to the community, we're going to be putting more information out there. So that website's really going to be our place to talk to people.
And that's the right URL there, I think. Yeah.
Actually, it's NMC Next.
Okay, nmc.org/NMC Next.
Yep. And so it was really, I mean, it was really fantastic for us. I mean, just to start hearing the voices and the conversations that it's prodded after that. So not just in that room, but the subsequent conversations too. We are very open to hearing what people need and what they want and how NMC can bridge those gaps.
And I think, thank you, Krista. And I think part of what we wanted to do too is, you know, in any organization, from virtually connecting to NMC to American Library Association to, you know, the Democratic Party or whatever you like, there's always going to be people who know each other, and over time you start to form cliques and clusters, and there's a sense that people are inside or outside, they're in the inner circle or they're not. And I think to a certain extent that's inevitable, but we're trying to break that down as best we can. Now I know that standing up in front of a room full of strangers and talking is not the way everybody's going to express themselves. But I think there were people in that room who were willing to express themselves who'd never been asked or given the opportunity to speak to the NMC membership. And so there were certainly many people that I didn't know and I'd never heard from, which was great. But then beyond that, then we want to have the online. We also have, for people here, we've got a great big physical graffiti wall, as I call it, just a big piece of paper where people can add comments or draw a picture or whatever. So we're trying to have as many forms of communication and kind of democratize the input as best we can. And by the way, you know, the community is not just NMC members or people come to conference. So it's anyone who's interested in what we're doing. We value their input. So we hope we'll draw them in and they'll want to come to a conference or they'll want to become a member, participate in other ways. But it's really anybody who wants to be heard, and we want to hear from them, and that'll just make us better. So I was really gratified, and someone came up to me and said, you know, I've in different places at work and stuff, I've had things called town hall meetings, and where people ask for input and then they just, you know, say thank you very much, and nothing ever happens, which of course is a challenge for us. Now we have to make stuff happen, but
right.
But that, I mean, that's our job, but or our unpaid volunteer task.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
But he told me he felt it was very genuine, and he really felt like we were honoring what people had to say, and we genuinely wanted to hear it, and that was great. I mean, and then to hear you say it's transformative, you know.
Yep.
If I was Gardner, I might start crying. You know?
So what were the surprises?
It literally warms my heart to hear that, you know.
So she asked what were the surprises. I have to say that I don't think there was anything really shocking that we hadn't heard before or hadn't really thought of, but it was really sort of solidifying some of the ideas and so for instance, solidifying how important the Horizon Report is to people, but where they want to see it go next, and where they want what it would take to make it actionable. The other piece that we heard a lot about was membership, and how do we make our membership inclusive and really touch the right people at the right time, and that frankly is something that's going to take us a while to address, but it's something that we are going to address, and so we heard that loud and clear.
I'm going to say one thing, then I'm going to leave these poor people alone. Part of what I hope folks will remember is that the board is here to empower this transformation, Right now, we're temporarily in more of a position of direct leadership than we typically are. What we're going to try to do is listen to the community, find the direction of that transformation, and then really help to find the person who will be able to lead a team towards that transformation. So all the things that you're hearing about the town hall and all the things that surfaced, please put them into your mental job description of a job that, of a person you think would be great in that role, or if that's something that fits your aspirations and your directions, consider applying once that description is out, because we as the board are stepping in now to show that this organization is firmly focused on the future, and we've got some really great and thoughtful people on the board, excepting myself, to really help go in that direction. But the board's most important challenge right now in the near term is to get that description as, suggestive and interesting as possible, and then to help find that person who's going to be the next executive director. And we're so fortunate to have a wonderful interim executive director in Peggy Snyder. But the work of that transformation lies ahead of us, and the new executive director is really going to be the one to push us forward in that way. So thank you very much. I leave you now to your regularly scheduled hangout.
And I'll just return, thank you, Gardner. I'll just return once to surprises. Actually, I was surprised how many people were willing to stand up and speak in front of everybody, and how many different topics came up. It wasn't a lot of, me too, but it was actually covered pretty much the whole gamut of almost every issue that we've been thinking about. Someone had a comment or suggestion, so it was affirming in that we were kind of on the right track in general, and but also also how much passion there was, and people, how emotional some people were. I don't know, Paul, as a participant, you were there yesterday?
I caught the tail end of it.
Okay.
I was busy chatting with other people and networking at NMC, because this is one of the only times where I get to talk with these interesting people that I chat with online, but get to see them face to face.
Yeah, maybe Barbara, if she was there, maybe she has a impression as a participant.
Yeah, Barbara, were you there?
Can't hear you, Barbara. You're muted. There you go.
Got unmuted. Yeah, and I had the same impression. There are a lot of people who are very passionate about the ideas that were presented, and the idea that NMC is the organization for making these types of things happen. There aren't really any other professional organizations in our world that are really focused on what could be and where we should be going and how we can work together to make these things happen. And it was apparent to me in that room yesterday that this is something that people do feel very passionately about, and they gave some really excellent suggestions to help get there.
And I unfortunately also need to run,
Oh,
but
okay.
but I
Thank you for
want
joining
to
us.
thank everybody and thank you for your input, and I will see you around either virtually or in person. So.
Thank you,
Come on
Krista.
closer. So what was the virtual impression of the town hall? Were you guys following on Twitter? Did you guys do the Periscope feed? How did you guys consume it?
We're hearing a lot about the passion and the interesting, but not actually hearing what the topics were.
So the website does have the prompt questions, but the discussion went beyond those questions. I don't know that we've really thought through how to capture and present what happened in the town hall. I do have a video. I have a adequate audio and a bad video recording of the event. A lot of people were taking notes. Several people on the board took pretty copious notes.
Yeah.
We probably need to think about in some way consolidating what the discussions were and putting them out to the community, and we're planning to use that site for it. So maybe we'll start some kind of a blog-like space there where we can just say, hey, this is what we've heard so far. So
And we kind of touched on it a little bit. So membership was huge, right? That was a big topic. So that was a topic. That's not necessarily
different strategies for the conference. Internationalization, global, having global reach. There were a lot of people who came. Somebody said I traveled 2 days from Australia to be here, and there was somebody from Colombia. We're close to the Canadian border here, so there were several more Canadians than usual, which is great. I'm trying to think if there were other major topics, but we do need to spread it.
Discussion about adjunct voices?
In what sense, Rebecca?
Well, so I keep hearing things about member organizations.
Yeah.
Right. No, somebody did bring that
call
up.
for universities or whatever to provide their examples for the Horizon Report and stuff like that, but I don't hear any way in which people that are not associated with a university or a multi-affiliated could be involved in that.
So there's two issues there. Let me unpack them. One is to have more models of membership, so that if
Right.
somebody is an independent, I think we do have something. It's not well publicized. You know, the membership thing is really tricky because the dollars that those institutions pay is a major part of what keeps the organization afloat. And so as we look at different membership models, we have to be very careful that if we just said, okay, anyone can join for $50, there are some campuses that would say, okay, well, there's only 3 people on this campus who are really interested. We'll just, and it's a big hassle to fight to get $2,500 a year. We'll just join as individuals and we'll go on. If everybody who was at a campus did that, we'd go out of business, given the way we operate now. So we want to have more options. We want to have ways, because we do hear this time and time again, well, I'm the only person on my campus involved with NFC. I really love it. I want to be a member. How can I do it? Or I'm not at a campus. I'm in some other role. Museums, we hear it all the time. K-12, we hear it all the time. Virtually no K-12 school in America. Only a very few well-funded privates are going to pay $2,500 or even $1,000 to join the organization. So how do we? It's a challenge enough for them to even come to a meeting.
Is there a way to verify that somebody isn't affiliated with an institution, and in that case, grant them an opportunity for individual
Well, I mean, it's something to
membership?
consider. I think there are a lot of different ways. I think we want to have some kind of an individual membership. We want to have some more affordable pathways. Right. So that's one thing, is membership, and then there's what participation people can do if they're not members at all, because
right.
we want to be an open community. Most of our resources go right online as Creative Commons, with a Creative Commons copyright. So, we have 4 million downloads of the Horizon Report. No one pays us anything to do those downloads. They're simply up there and anyone can download them. And we're really proud of that, and because we're an impact organization. We don't want to hide everything behind a membership or subscription. Then at the same time we get, well, that's great, I really like it, but I'm a member. What are you doing for me? I'm paying this money. It's nice that it's altruistic and up to a point. I really like that it supports education all over the world. But my boss is saying, hey, we're going to cut 10% of the budget. Can we really afford this? What do you get for this $2,500, right?
Yeah.
What's the value for me? So those are the really tough business decisions that we have to consider as reality, because right now we have 8 staff people whose families depend on their income from NMC. Now, that's not a reason to do what we do. Maybe we should have fewer staff members, but maybe we should have more. But we have to be very careful to make sure that the long-term viability of the organization is protected as we look at it. So, those are very honest dilemmas, and I think our philosophy as a board is, instead of to hide behind those things or to deny they exist, is just put them out there. Community say, hey, folks, this is a reality. You can look at our budget, you can see where the money comes from, and now help us figure out how we can get to somewhere where either we're a small organization, but that means probably potentially less impact, less able to deliver on things, or we're the same size but we're funded differently, or we're bigger, but that involves we want to find a way for everyone that wants to be part of it to be involved, and we're I think we're, as a board and as a community, super sensitive to the fact that not everyone has the same resources. So it means a lot different for MIT to pay the membership versus Florida State. So versus an individual who maybe is a lecturer who's at 3 different campuses, and that person has no disposable income. So that's all there, and so I think what people appreciated in the town hall is we were ready to lay it out there and say, yeah, this is where it is. Help us. We don't have all the answers. We want. If we're a community, then let's act like a community and solve problems together.
Awesome. I wanted to see if any of the virtual participants had questions, comments, thoughts.
Not really a question. It's getting my mental gears turning, because I'm thinking about different types of professional associations that exist, and thinking about there's a philosophical term or an economics term for this, but the issue of the freeloader, basically. So those people in, those people out. It's just kind of odd that we as a group are not more altruistic and say, well, yeah, we get this for free, but it's not really free. but we're also doing this for people who can't do it because that's who we are, and that is what our profession, be it educational technologists, instructional designers, teachers, instructors, those people in education, us in education, I feel that should be like core value that we have. We know what we know, but we don't, when we get paid to do it, we don't meter it. We share freely. So that's sort of what's going on in my head and sort of rattling around.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think that's very much what we are, and I think the way people think about that has changed since the organization started. This was an organization that was started by private industry. That was actually Apple and Adobe getting together and saying we need to build a coalition of people across campuses that are interested in what we do, and frankly, it was in their economic interest to do so because they had tools and they wanted to build them. But the particular people who were involved, I mean, they had to answer to a corporation that says, hey, at the end of the day, we got to sell stuff or we're out of business. But the particular people weren't involved because they were passionate about making money for Apple and Adobe. They were passionate about getting tools into the hands of as many students and teachers as possible so that they could use them in creative ways. I mean, that was clearly, because I know some of those people, and that's what motivates them. Mm-hmm. But the reality is then they've still got to go back somewhere. There's a vice president who's going to say, why are you spending this money? What are we getting for it? And at least they can make the case, well, what we're getting is we're creating future generations of people who are really interested in these tools and can use them, and that can be a good argument, but there's a lot of competition in that space, and the question might be, well, that's okay, but is this really the most effective way? And if you say, well, but really it's because we want to help support the world and make a better world and have people all over the world thinking about how technology is changing and how people are thinking about it differently, we want to support that. It's kind of like, yeah, but maybe not for what we're spending, And it's like, well, that's nice, but you should just make a personal contribution. If you care about it, give your own money. Why, you're taking money that belongs to the stockholders or whatever, and you're giving it to this organization. Why should we do that? Likewise, I'm at a state university, so this membership, I have to ask, do the students and the taxpayers who give me that money, it's not my money. I want to be altruistic, but the money I have in my budget is not my money. If I put that into supporting a particular organization, is that really the right thing for my institution? And sometimes those are tough questions. Hey, you came back.
Yeah, you're back. We have a couple more minutes, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
We were just talking about actually we got into just the business side of the organization. I was just explaining how, on the one hand, we want to be as open as we possibly can and give away as much as we possibly can, and at the same time, producing that Horizon report takes the hard work of some very smart people and very hardworking people, and we need to pay them appropriately so that they can support their families. So that's
the balance.
At the same time, though, I mean, just as like somebody who doesn't sit on the board is like a complete outsider this is my first conference ever, there's such a huge difference between an organization who I kind of feel like they're in it for the money. Like, that's the starting part. Like, you're never going to get rid of the money card, right? It's always going to be a play. It's always going to be a play in the game. But is that our starting place?
No.
And I feel like with you guys, that's not. It's not the starting place. Like, that's going to be a factor. And I'm
getting the scripts for the final session. Thanks, Gordon.
And I think
Gordon's one of those amazing people that works for the organization that people's membership dollars support. And
Hi, so sorry for interrupting. Didn't realize what was going on.
Gordon loves the world, and he'd also like to be able to pay his mortgage. So I mean, that's the reality.
More updates.
Okay.
And I think
we're very agile too, dynamic.
I think one of the indicators, one of the things that shows me that that's not where you're coming from, is just how transparent you're being right now in this moment, right? I mean, how often, even doing virtually connecting, when we sit down with conference organizers, a lot of times this question, is not something that we talk about so openly and transparently. So,
I mean, I would think our model. There's an emerging kind of social business model, impact organizations, where it's like, we need to make a profit so we can survive, but that's not the purpose of the organization. The purpose of the organization is to, for people to have shoes or to get water so that people can drink it so they can be healthy. So I would like to think we're kind of analogous to something like that. I mean, and in theory, every free nonprofit organization ought to be that, but we all know that there's everything from organizations that are pure evil to ones that, are just people who are just trying to keep their income to ones that are, you know, incredibly socially conscious and do everything they can to give to the world, you know. And so we want to be more on that end of the spectrum. But again, while recognizing, like I said, that we have corporations involved, we have big institutions, and we have a hardworking staff that we want to compensate fairly.
I think one other thing that's difficult too is because as the NMC, one of the things we want to do is push boundaries and push innovation, right? I mean, we should be the conduit for this innovation. Innovation isn't cheap, right? So there's this tricky balance between doing things that are cheap and easy to get to members versus things that are innovative and might actually take some cost to do, and so that's also, I think, a struggle and in wanting to meet all of the demands of what the community needs, but how to be innovative both financially and technologically. So.
Yep. Good.
So, speaking as somebody who has to decide who to pay money to, you know, when I look at the money that we spend for NMC, I am one of those ones who is saying, okay, where is the value proposition here? Why should we be giving money to this organization? And so this year the conference was nice and close, and I came up here and I'm seeing a lot of engagement from everybody, not just the instructional designers, but there's also faculty, there's a lot of K-12 teachers, there's a lot of library museum people. And to me, the strength of this organization is in the variety of community that it's bringing in the name of innovation and thinking about education. And I think that we have a great opportunity with the questions that you're asking to maybe think about, well, how do we cultivate this community in such a way that it can contribute to the growth of technology and education by doing cross-university and cross-institution collaborations.
Yep.
And people in not after the fact, but as these ideas are being produced so that we can work together at our separate institutions and collaboratively to really push the envelope. And I think that NMC has a great opportunity right in that space to cultivate that community and make it operate in that way.
Couldn't agree more. Well said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now we cut you off.
Jump in and say, oh yeah, it's well worth it. Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's a pretty good place to end.
That's a fantastic. That's it. That's what we want to do.
Yep.
You guys can continue the conversation if you want to, but I think that we're going to have to run.
Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, Sue, do you have questions?
I just wanted to check to see because you hadn't had a chance to ask.
No, it's fine. I'm just curious because obviously this is a completely different culture to the UK. You know, we don't have anything like this. I suppose the nearest thing is JISC. You know, they don't have a conference, but they have networking events and they have, I guess, e-learning experts that come together and share their practice. And they happen in the centre of England, so people can travel from different parts and Scotland. And the other is the Higher Education Academy, which does have a conference and it makes its money through those kind of events.
Well, we'll be in Boston next year, Sue, so I hope you can join us.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. It really does. So,
You know,
is Boston next year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently. ZK and I work for
my
you
wish list for a long time to visit there. So yeah, fingers crossed. So thanks very much for having me in. It's been fascinating.
Thank you.
One last thing I wanted to say is that the collaboration we have with Virtually Connecting is one of the things that we're really is an example of the kind of thing we want to be able to do, because we can't possibly do it all. And Chris was talking about the cost of innovation. Here you've got something that you're doing that's innovation that's not a costly innovation financially, although you've put a huge amount of work and effort into creating what you built. So we don't need to do that. We can partner with you and say, hey, come on in, and you are now our virtual arm for part of how we communicate around the world. And I think there are a lot of other organizations like that.
Yep.
And if we can, you know, and with your help and others' help, we can find them and work with them informally, formally, on a shoestring or expensive, but not for us to do it all. Because in this world, you know, you survive by collaboration more than by competition.
And that's a great way that we can contribute, maybe if we can't contribute financially.
Exactly.
And that could be a great way for independents to maybe you can earn a membership through some type of volunteerism.
That's a
or
great
something
idea.
Like
like earn your own. I love the idea of, you know.
Earn your badge.
Yeah, earn your NMC badge. You know. NMC. I mean, we do that with companies, right? Sometimes we have companies where they provide services in kind, and we give them a membership.
Right.
Why
so
couldn't
not?
individuals do the same thing?
Yeah. And I mean, that's almost more valuable than the cash at that point, right? Because you can keep the
we
premium.
do need cash too.
Right, but you can keep the premium of the cash at the institution level, and then tell individuals
Absolutely.
if you want to be a part, you can. But then you got to participate. You got to be a part of stuff, and you've got to actively participate. So, and we've got
nice.
Very nice NMC badges.
Well, thank you
All
so
right,
much.
we're gonna run.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And if people want to stick around that are online, we can continue the conversation.
And we're gonna drop out too, Rebecca.
Okay. Enjoy the rest of the conference. I'm looking forward to seeing the tweets from Brian Alexander's session.
Bye.
Boop. All right. AK and Sue, do you have anything? Do you want to chat about anything else before we turn off?
No, especially it's just really nice to meet you, Rebecca, because I've only sort of seen you through Twitter, and so it's really nice to hear your voice, and because obviously I know Maha.
Thank you. It's funny because I watch these more, and so I feel like I know everybody, and then I realize that they've never actually seen me.
No. So that's great, but I'm gonna have to shoot now too. But thanks very much again for inviting me in, and hopefully our paths will cross again in the future with other events, whether they're in the UK, the US, or anywhere in the world. They could be
somewhere in the world. Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Do you want to? I should probably go off now. Unless did you want to say anything, AA?
No, just I think the space where the space for membership-driven organizations, dues-paying membership-driven organizations, is going to be really interesting to see over the next few years as things get decentralized. The value proposition, especially for organizations that members pay and not their departments or organizations pay, is going to be really interesting. So why should I join this organization, that one, or that one? What do I get out of it as an individual when I can have virtual connecting and a few other things that are free?
It's actually a really good question, because I'm looking at it I play a little bit in the healthcare space, right? And so like the Mayo Clinic has a social media organization that I'm actually interested in, but then I'm like, I have to ask myself, is it worth the $45 a year for me to join? Because I can't they actually block their discussion forums. So you can't you can see the titles of the topics, but you can't actually read or participate unless you're a member. Which, so I have to balance, is there value in me being a member in this community?
Right.
Is it worth that money? Because it's something that I would be paying out of pocket for. I don't know the answer to that yet. I haven't decided on that one, but I do see that membership sort of driven thing. And it's very interesting how things are different across. It's the same thing with open access publishing, right? Very different across different, what's the word I'm looking for? Lost it.
Segments of the population.
Well, and then when I research different areas, right? So in medicine, if you want to publish open access, you have to pay, and it's not an insubstantial fee. It's usually like $2,000 or $3,000 to publish in an open access medical journal, whereas where it doesn't cost you anything to publish in one that's locked. Whereas in education, on the other hand, it actually costs us to. If it's a locked journal, you pay a subsidy to unlock it, but otherwise, there are open access journals that you don't have to pay for. But then you have to wonder how are they being funded?
Mm-hmm.
Who's actually behind that? Because this stuff isn't free, right? And Michael brought that up, right? Like the cash does matter, and so it's definitely going to be interesting to see how things play out in that segment.
And it's interesting to see what the cachet is of open versus closed, because if cash matters to some extent, whether it's me buying access to a journal or getting access to an association for free, then it's that the economists have a term for this. I forget what it is. It's been a long time since I took economics, but when you pay even a little bit, a token amount, we tend to appreciate it more, which is kind of odd, but I guess it,
well, and we see that a lot in a bunch of other communities as well, right? So when you want to put something on like an event, if it's a free event, people will register and not show up.
Yep.
But if they pay for it, they're more likely to show up. And that's the MOOC issue, right? The whole MOOC dropout equation. It's like, well, because they didn't have to pay for it. It's easy to click the button to say I registered.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't have to commit anything to that. I just have to click a button. It's so simple. So I'm not really a dropout because I didn't really commit to doing it because I never started in the first place.
Exactly.
But it is that interesting sort of balance. And yeah, I know there's got to be a term in economics for that.
There is. It just escapes me, but it's just really interesting, as I'm more and more looking into the field from an interdisciplinary perspective, these things are just starting to click for me. It's like education and management and economics and philosophy, and they're all just coming together. And I'm looking at the traditional silos of the academe, and it's just like, why do we have these silos? I mean, I get why we had them at one point, but interdisciplinarity can really open our eyes to a lot of things that we're just blind to at the moment. So
it's an interesting challenge because I do interdisciplinary research, and I'm finding that like just the basics like ethics, people actually believe different things ethically based upon which silo they're in or which field of study they're in. And so what something is considered open in one field is not considered open in another. And part of it is the type of research you're doing, right? The qualitative versus quantitative. Are you just analyzing the numbers, or are you actually looking at it as a human phenomena or not? But even the definition of what's human subjects research and what isn't is different across different specialties and different organizations. And so that makes it an interesting challenge, never mind the language challenge where the same words mean totally different things in the different fields. And the things you've got to be careful, like, the one word that was interesting is education. We talk about disruption as a positive thing,
mm-hmm.
right? Where we're disrupting the norm and we're talking about it as a positive thing. In medicine, disruption is a very bad thing, right? And so the terminology just becomes this interesting challenge in and of itself with interdisciplinaryism. But I think, and I think Michael caught on it here, is that the collaboration is actually going to be the critical to anything going forward. We need to do more collaboration. That's the world that we're living in, and that collaboration needs to be across disciplines and across fields.
I think it'd be very interesting to have, I'm not sure exactly what JISC's mission is in the UK, but doing collaborations to bring NMC and NMC type things into Europe and to Asia and to all these other spaces where at the moment we're just a very North American type thing. But, through those collaborations globally, then we can both branch out, but also bring people in so that we can have those collaborations and look at things through different frames.
Well, and it sounded like they were actually looking at that, like the bringing in more global perspectives was something that was on sort of the list. That's at the town hall and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next year in Boston. Like, is there going to be more opportunities? Is it going to be easier? Boston's a little bit more of a hub than Rochester, so it's actually a little bit easier to get to.
Yep.
And so that might actually make it easier for people to get there. Although I'm sure the hotels and stuff probably cost more. So
pretty sure for people coming from Australia, it's going to be equally difficult.
Yeah, it is still sort of the other side of the world. Okay, on that note, I think that we need to close off the live portion of our broadcast today. So thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this off now.